Nick Boy, welcome to Pocket, and today we are talking through, and today's talk through topic comes in from Nick Boy to Barjo. What'd you think about the new Telltale Batman game?
Oh, it's good!
It's good.
It's so good!
It's so good that we actually thought that we would sit down and just have a bit of a chat about it. We're going full spoiler, so if you haven't played it yet, you only need to give up 2 hours of your life. You can go play it, or I did a full playthrough last week on our live stream, which is on our YouTube channel, so go watch it there. Then come back and enjoy this conversation. Badge, we're both big Batman fans.
Yeah.
What grabbed you about this initially?
The thing that got me
Yeah.
was when I started to see what kind of Batman I could be. Because I like all the different types of Batmans.
Yep.
I really like the Batman who is, a hero to everyone, even the villains. He tries to save their lives,
Animated
right?
series Batman.
Yeah, he'll never kill anyone. And then I really like the Dark Knight Returns kind of Batman, where he's like, I'm sick of this, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Like, he's actually my favorite. And in this, I'm getting the sense that I could kind of pick which kind of Batman I want to be.
Yeah. What do you think about the Batflick Batman?
I'm not sure what he's about yet.
Yeah.
We've seen very little.
Yeah.
We've just seen him make a bad mum joke and then, kick some butt.
That's true.
I think he seems decent, though, but, DC don't know what they're doing post-Nolan, so that's a whole other story, in my opinion.
He's certainly a man of violence. And I agree with you that I like the fact that you can pick the kind of Batman you're going to be. But I also really loved that this is also a Bruce Wayne story.
Yeah.
And because Bruce Wayne is the other half of Batman. You know how there's that thing where Superman is the real person and Clark Kent is like the costume?
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's the performance he puts on?
Yeah.
Batman is not the costume. Bruce Wayne isn't the costume. They are both half of the same person. So I feel like equal import on Bruce Wayne is always just as interesting.
And in video games, you never play as Bruce Wayne, or if you do, it's for a minute.
Yeah.
You're walking along, and then you put on the suit, and the game begins.
Exactly.
So now we get to really explore Bruce, which is an interesting character.
Yeah.
Bruce has a lot of things in his life that connect to Batman with the characters he meets and talks to in his life. Just like that scene with Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and Bruce. So they're at the coffee table, and they're talking about, they had interaction. They obviously recognize you're Batman, you're Catwoman, and there's all these kind of cues going on. You couldn't really do that in the other games. That might be a cutscene. But now you're playing a part in that little story twisting and turning and the game of that.
That was, I loved that. That was probably the best scene in the game for me, because it was this situation where you're sitting there and you're making these choices, these dialogue choices to go, okay, if I was in this scenario, would I let on that I know who you are?
Yeah.
Would I play dumb, I don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 I'm not Batman. But I totally played that game of we both know, and I have you as much as you have me, and this beautiful little dance, which, like you said, if it was one of the Arkham games, that would be...
It'd be a cutscene.
It'd be a cutscene, and then he would have to punch her.
Yeah.
It's the rule of the game.
He has to fight eventually.
He would have to punch her.
And you know what gives that scene so much weight is you're making in that classic Telltale style and choice consequence game styles, the choices that you're making are gonna matter, right? And so you have this extra pressure now as Bruce as well with those moments. It's how is this going to affect Catwoman and Batman later?
Yeah.
Are they going to get together? If I'm saying the wrong thing here, will they not get together? Because I want them to get together, but then I kind of don't. And it's just there's just so much going on. So much so, in fact, that quite often I would let that timer run out and Bruce would just go... and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
That's so interesting, because you said that before I started playing it. You said that heaps of the time you just let the timer run out.
Yeah.
I never do that in
No?
any Telltale game, because I go, to me, I need to say something. Which is funny, because oftentimes I will not feel the need to impose my opinion on someone else. But you love saying things. So it's like we've actually switched positions like that. But okay, so what's that experience like when you're not saying stuff? Are they picking up on the fact that you're this quiet, brooding human being?
It's tense.
Yeah.
I think at one point, actually, Catwoman just goes, you're the brooding type, aren't you? I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. Give me that ... response.
Dot is brooding.
Because Batman is a man of few words.
That's very true. I'm a chatty man.
You're a Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Lots of sort of quips and playing that sort of social game. I love the fact as well that the game is set early.
Yeah.
The one downside to that for me is that we're going through a lot of the setup again for characters. You're going through Harvey Dent before and after.
That's gonna be great. That journey's gonna be so much fun. It's like a fan thing, right?
I think it will actually be more fun because I imagine Harvey is going to become Two-Face at some point over the next, 4 episodes or however many they do. But it will have more impact because you will have had a relationship with him.
Yeah.
You will have been speaking to him and actually spent some time rather than him being a character that just you passively watch or something. So that's true.
I'm curious about how far they will take the choice consequence. What if he doesn't become Two-Face? Like, what if your decisions make him just Harvey Dent? Like, maybe they will go there, because Telltale do not pull punches. You know, they're happy to kill off characters. What if they kill off Alfred? What if they kill Alfred?
That is such a good point. I hadn't thought about that fact that you could actually save Two-Face, because like a lot of the time in the comics there is this sort of like guilt that Batman did that to Two-Face. That there's this element of like couldn't save him and that sort of thing. That's really interesting.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just make all the Rogues Gallery, you know, appear as they are, as we know them eventually. But it's an interesting idea, and I'm so curious about the next chapters.
Yeah.
Especially because we know these characters so well.
Yeah.
We know Batman, so we know Bruce, so we know all the Rogues Gallery really well. And so if they're going to do interesting new things with them, that's going to be fascinating. Like they did with Cobblepot. Like, that's a really interesting interpretation.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of new, I don't think I've ever seen... I've never seen the Penguin like that, except for maybe the Gotham series, but that's actually set when they're all kids.
Yeah.
Like, Batman is a child in Bruce Wayne is a child in that show, so...
He's a sexy Cobblepot. He's a sexy dude.
He looks like a sort of heroin chic model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has the violence, right?
He's terrifying,
They like did a really great job of setting up how violent he is and how he goes to those extremes. Just in that simple little fight scene. They're so good at setup in this Telltale episode. You instantly know where you are in the Batman timeline. You instantly know the relationships between the cops and Batman, between like Bruce and Harvey, between Bruce and Falcone, and just all these other characters. They've set it up so you know where you are and you can get excited about the journey that you're going to take with all these different characters.
It's interesting, the Cobblepot thing, because I've traditionally never really liked Penguin as a villain because he's one of the villains which are like he's just a white collar bad guy kind of like he's not the bad guy, he's henchmen of the bad guy, and they're the ones you should be scared of. He's always running away at the last minute and letting his guys fight, because oftentimes the interpretation of the Penguin is he's just sort of like a corrupt businessman.
Yeah, like
and we've got
corrupt
that
British guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, like they all are, and we've got that in Falcone. Like he is that sort of like gangster star. So it looks like they're sort of taking cues from. He's kind of like the Joker, actually. He seems like a bit of an anarchist.
Yeah,
he's a bit sort of like I'm here to just mess your city up.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting interpretation, because it's also the sense you're there meeting that character, having a conversation in this park that his family, it's named after his family.
Yeah.
But the park is totally run down.
Yeah.
So there's this sense that like he's lost everything.
He's got nothing to lose.
So it's like him and Batman are actually both sides of the same coin, which makes me think maybe he is actually the big bad in this. Because setting that up this early and then not having him appear at all in the rest of it, like maybe that is actually the twist, that he becomes the villain in the third one for the rest of the series.
You know, they in a lot of the Batman storylines, they often force him to side with the villain for a time.
Yeah, totally.
You know, which is a common thing.
Like Poison Ivy or something.
Yeah. And I'm really curious as if the decisions that you make might cause that to happen. Maybe you choose to side with Cobblepot, and maybe that hurts Dent.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's some things that happen like that, and that'll be interesting to discover and work out, I think.
Totally. And I did have a concern when it came to they were talking about his family, because I am of the opinion that it's integral to Batman that he lost his parents at that age. The way that they died is really important, the effect it had on him. But everyone knows it, so I feel like we don't need to see it every single time. And when they brought it up here, and I think they did it very quickly, which I was thankful for, and they did it in a nice way where he's looking at a picture, and it's the shadows on the wall behind him. And I thought that was really like a clever way of doing that. But I went, oh god, do we have to see this again? But this is the first time that I have seen a Batman story actually go, let's take that moment and continue the story by going at the end. It's like, were his parents working with Falcone? Were they in this criminal underworld?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, it was actually really important, not just tonally and for, Batman's pathos that we saw that, but also for the story that you're telling, that this is actually, important that they died because he can't get the answers to justify like what is being told about his parents now. And I thought that was really, really interesting, and I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, and it means something to Batman, that storyline. You know, that's what I like. It's not just like, there's another villain, let's stop him, blah. It's like, no, this is a mystery that affects Batman's core, his reason for being. It's another thing which will define Batman. And that's what I like so much about this app. There's all these moments that will be defining Batman that we're going to get to play through, and that we've already started to play through.
And thank God there is a mystery, because he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
Like, he's supposed to be a detective almost before he's a fist.
Yeah.
Like, he's supposed to solve things and then punch them, not just punch them until they stop doing it. So, so very excited about that.
What did you think of the actual detectiving, like from a gameplay point of view?
Look, there wasn't much. There was really one moment of detection, which was that warehouse scene.
Yeah.
I thought it was clever where you're linking the things together, but at no point was I like, oh, I don't know the answer to this. There's a bullet hole there, and there's a bullet there. I wonder if those two things go together.
I was doing kind of almost trial and error, like what's working here.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't quite work out the fiddliness of it at first.
Yeah.
And then it didn't, and I'd had a couple of bugs, you know, so
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, is this bugging out? And it didn't feel very like, let's solve something here. It felt like I need to connect the dots before the story will let me progress. And I wanted a more, let me do a real detective-y kind of thing.
I'm hoping they add more of that in. In the Arkham games, there's some good stuff with the sort of like reconstructing a crime scene.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Especially in Origins. Origins did that really well.
Please, you and I, like the two people who love Origins.
Origins is great.
Yeah.
Don't like Origins.
Because it's mainly
Why?
It's mainly like a detective story, and there's a lot of this sort of like reconstructing a crime scene. Even though technically a lot of it is just like walk over here, scan. But I like seeing his brain process of like building that.
Because you're putting it together. It's about that,
Yeah.
putting the puzzle piece together alongside Batman.
Yeah,
And
so-
it doesn't have to be like too brain taxing.
I agree, though. I would like to see more of the puzzling. I was actually interested that the combat felt pretty good.
It actually, yeah, it did.
It felt pretty kinetic and like energetic.
And that was the big thing about this game for me. It's like, am I going to enjoy just playing through the storylines of the Batmans? And then I think about all the cartoons that I loved and movies and like and Justice League stuff I got obsessed about with. And it was because of Batman's storylines and the really cool villains he has. You know, like out of all like DC and Marvel, I think Marvel have like really great heroes, but they have rubbish villains.
Totally.
But I think DC have like
DC
Batman
have great-
and the best villains.
Yeah, the Rogues Gallery of Batman is the best in any comic book ever, and Marvel have generally like better everything else.
Yeah, fair enough. But I was excited because I enjoyed the combat sequences. You know, they were simple, and like it's pretty hard to fail them. I did another playthrough of like a few of those of that first combat sequence.
Yeah.
And
Just stand there.
just standing there, getting hit, and it didn't change much visually. I was expecting it to change more like you know with Heavy Rain, if you missed like a quick time event, the kind of scene would change.
Yeah,
That's just really complex. So I
Yeah.
understand, but you just like it's just like you get hit, you hit him still, but you don't get the points or whatever.
Yeah,
that's
right,
timing
okay,
up,
yeah.
and then like you die
Yeah,
as
okay,
Batman,
right, yeah.
right? But still, they were engaging and they were fast and action paced, and I especially liked the one towards the end where you're doing the drone setup.
And like all the gangsters are in the room, and
Yeah.
you're going, I want to take this guy out
Yeah.
by like throwing him into the room divider and stuff.
I mean, it was still simple.
Yeah.
You know, like that could have been more complex as well.
But it's a cool idea.
And I didn't care.
Yeah.
It was so fun watching that all play out afterwards and being involved in that. Especially when he grabs the big, I don't know if you did this one, but where he grabs the art and like smashes the big piece of art into one of the goons.
Oh, no, I didn't do
I
that.
did that. I was like, blah.
But I do think, again, Telltale, you're just so rubbish at making video games. You're great at telling stories.
Yeah.
Your games just suck. I cannot believe we're at this point. Borderlands, Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead's, The Wolf Among Us, there's another one, the Minecraft one. They still have not figured out how to make their own freaking games. The resolution was wrong. It took me 10 minutes to be able to, like, there were times where I was trying to move the mouse down to apply changes, and it would stop halfway in the screen. It wouldn't go down to the bottom of its own screen.
Because you couldn't get it full frame, right?
No.
Yeah, I found out you have to like back out of two menus and then it automatically applies and goes full. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only had one other bug though. Sounds like you had more than me. I had one where the audio didn't come in for a few moments. And
I feel it's not so much, like, I had one or two weird audio moments as well, but it's more that it just still feels clunky. Everything still feels like it's almost like they're using a different engine and forcing the game into it. It's like a mod. Like it feels like a mod.
It's a creaky engine now.
Yeah, and I just think at this point, this is your bread and butter now. Like you know when you in the episode yesterday, in Good Game, you interviewed one of the devs, and you were talking about the story, and the dev went, with every Telltale game, it starts in the writer's room.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe let one programmer in that room as well. Maybe just have someone in there who's like, you know what? That's not possible. Like, in the engine we have.
You know what'd be good here? An apply button.
Yeah.
Or an OK button.
Exactly. And so, even though I feel like the combat did really well, where it felt like you were controlling Batman in a fast, fun way. I just want to see these games actually perform in the same way that I feel like their stories are, because I also know that a lot of people have problems, and thankfully I've never had this, but a lot of people have problems with like corrupted saves and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
when you go into
that's
these story
awful
games,
for these kind of games.
you don't.
Yeah.
It's the thing that it actually makes you go, okay, I'm just not going to play it anymore.
I mean, we haven't heard of any for Batman, so
No,
maybe
no,
that may have
no.
done that.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. It's just, but it's almost like there's no sense of we're past that now.
Yeah.
Like there's still a sense of trepidation that anything could go wrong at any time with these games.
True. I feel like they've actually improved a lot, though, you know, over the last few iterations of it, as far as especially the animations go and the smoothness of how things transition.
Except for when they're walking.
You know? Except for when they're walking like this.
So slow. Like
Yeah.
if you look at him walking out of that room, it takes him like 10 seconds to go 10 feet.
The best one, though, when Harvey Dent and Batman are sitting there with Selena Kyle in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And they're breathing in sync.
Yeah,
They both
right.
go.
Right, they've just got...
It's like they've been to yoga together or like a birthing session.
It's like, they're doing a tantric thing where it's like, we're just really connecting right now. Speaking of Harvey Dent, he was so pointy.
He was
He was like a Bonds model. He
was
just like
muscly.
that, and then down to like a waist.
He was big and muscly. He was huge.
I was saying when I was streaming it, I was like, if you were the kind of person that wanted to find out who Batman was, if you were seeing Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne standing there, you would be like, is Harvey Dent Batman?
Yeah.
He's massive.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
a politician? I mean, I know Abbott went to the beach, but that's redonk.
Yeah, well, you know, he's tough on himself and he's tough on crime.
Is that what you went? Did you go the slogan? Did you do the slogan for
I don't think he's actually tough on
put
crime.
a dent in crime? Is that?
I did. I do think he actually. Yeah, that was the best pun ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went for that. I imagine everyone in the world went for that. How
And
did
then-
you not resist that pun?
And then it puts it on the poster, like in the background of a scene. It's like that's now his slogan: "Put a dent in crime." Very clever. That's the most advanced the engine's ever gone. Well, thank you very much for coming in and having a chat.
It was my pleasure.
Good. Well, I think it was our pleasure as well. What did you guys think of the Batman game by this point? I assume you have played or watched me play it. Hopefully you haven't watched anyone else play it, because you wouldn't do that to us, would you? But let us know in the comments what you think about this. Are you in for more of these? Do you like Batman? What kind of storytelling do you like in these games? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, bye out. Mwah. Yeah, sure.
See you later.
Why are we all emotional? Is it the sign?
Yeah. Get me.